From the News Channel 5 Network, this is Morning Line with Nick Barris.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us on Morning Line. Nick Barris here on a Thursday, and a good show on tap for you. This is something that if you live in downtown Nashville, you certainly are aware of. If you're someone who visits the city downtown, but maybe lives on the outskirts, but you come into town, you've got to be aware of it as well. If you never come downtown, maybe you don't know about that. But the issue is the whole phenomenon of Transpotainment. And we're talking about some of these very unique vehicles that are transporting mostly tourists through the downtown area, likely especially in the evenings and on the Fridays and Saturdays in this town, but really pretty much 24/7 it seems like, if you ask me. We're talking about, you know, those horse-drawn carriages, pedicabs, pedal taverns, of course, and hybrids of such, to the point where there's so much down there that I think the city and concerned citizens are ready to take a stand and start limiting some of the licenses. In fact, later today, the Downtown Transportation Licensing Commission for Metro is going to be considering requests for 32 new pedal vehicle licenses. And, you know, for the first time in a bit, because it is business and money that comes down and it's industry, you know, the Nashville Area Chamber of Commerce, the Convention Visitors Bureau, Butch Spirit in there, and others are kind of suggesting that they deny permit requests for additional such vehicles because it's just becoming too much. And we're going to talk with someone who I think strongly agrees with this and has seen this evolve over time to the point where it's kind of ridiculous. With us this morning is Jim Schmitz. He is a downtown resident. I think since you live downtown, you work downtown, you're a banker, aren't you, Jim?
I retired from bank. I'm a reform banker.
Okay, you're a reform banker, and I just didn't know. You know, you live downtown, you spend time. You've seen this evolve. Give me, and I don't know how. Let me ask first. How long have you lived downtown, Jim?
I lived downtown since 2015.
Okay, so since 2015, we're talking about 6 years, going on 7 years. What have you seen evolve with regard to pedal taverns in just the time that you lived downtown? At first, did you see them and think, oh, well, that's kind of a neat little thing? How fun is that? And then it just blossomed from there. Talk about the evolution of it in your mind, what you've seen.
Okay, well, thanks for having me on today. I appreciate it.
Pleasure.
Well, first off, I think when we first moved to downtown, there were a few of the pedal taverns.
Yeah.
They were around and doing it. They were, you know, they were fun, but there were already beginning to be complaints about them causing traffic issues for people getting in and out of downtown who were working here, especially during the rush hours in the evenings on the Thursdays and Fridays, primarily. Since then, it's expanded beyond the pedal taverns, and now there are buses that have taken off the roofs. You know, they've carved the tops of the school buses off, created a big space. They play very loud music. There's, you know, it's a roving party. It's rolling around party on wheels. Not necessarily anything bad with that, but in doing so, there have been no safety regulations put on the books, nothing there to try to keep people safe on these vehicles, but they have proliferated substantially. They're everywhere, and they've earlier and earlier in the weeks, whereas this used to be primarily a Friday afternoon when the bachelorette parties were coming into town, it now seems to be all the time. It starts earlier and earlier in the day, and it goes later and later into the night. And I think for a lot of people who live downtown and who've been here for a while, moved downtown with the idea that I want to be close to where the action is. I want to be able to go and enjoy the entertainment that takes place in downtown Nashville, but I don't want to live right on top of it. So you pick a place that's a little bit further away from there. Well, what's happened is Broadway has gone on wheels, and now there is extremely loud music cruising up and down the streets around where people live. And it is a neighborhood. Downtown is a neighborhood, and becoming more and more of a neighborhood as more apartments and condominiums and things like that are constructed down here. So, you know, my position kind of is I don't want to stop the fun at all. I just want us to have some balance and recognize that there are different property uses downtown, and there needs to be balance. And I think the first place we start here is with no safety and no regulations put on these whatsoever. I think that's where we need to start. That's where we need to start the conversation.
Yeah, and when you talk about regulations then, and that seems, what you just said there seems completely reasonable to me. And when you talk about regulations, then would you imagine as we move forward, and we're going to talk about what's going to happen later today and what the state law allows and doesn't allow, but that would include then maybe zones where they are limited to being able to travel? Would that also include maybe putting a cap on the number of these types of vehicles that can be on the road, so that kind of, you know, you're going to have to wait until someone drops out before someone new can start a new one, where there's a limit on how many? Because that's kind of what's going on today. I mean, if the commission today approves this, you're talking 32 new pedal taverns hitting the road, which with what we already have there, I can't even imagine. So would those be the types of regs you're looking at or thinking about? Did that just freeze up? Oh, it looks like it just froze up. Sometimes that happens with our Zooms. Stay where you are, Jim. If you can still hear me, I'm sure you heard the question. We'll take a break, and when we come back, we'll pop Jim back up and ask him about those regs. And I want you at home, if you're watching this, to give us a call, 737-7587. Just real clear as we go back to this, and I kind of agree with Jim, we're not wanting to ban fun, okay? And there may be some of these owners of these pedal cabs and pedal taverns that are like, well, I'm just trying to make a living, and it's a safe, fun way to do it, and I agree. And I think that it brings something to the city to a degree. The problem is when it gets to be, oh, so much, and it gets in the way of other things that happen downtown, that there needs to be a limit. And so let's talk about that. We'll take your calls, what you think. And if you're a big advocate for these pedal taverns or have been on one, I'd like to hear from you on this. We'll take a break, be back with more right after this.